Hey guys, this is Anon, and I have had an incredible amount of requests to do a T20 video on the Tier 7 American medium tank, and so I am finally getting around to actually doing that. A lot of the reasons why I haven't is I just don't drive this tank very often. To me, this is one of the most, I guess, boring tanks in the game to drive. It's not that it's bad, it just doesn't particularly do anything well. It's not particularly fast, it's not particularly maneuverable. The DPM isn't particularly fantastic, it doesn't have much armor. What it has going for it is some really nice American gun depression and some decent gun handling. So if you know what you're doing, you can absolutely make this tank work, and I think that's why a lot of people struggle with it. It just profiles out as a tank that's a little bit difficult to drive, and so hopefully a little bit of gameplay and chatting through this a little bit will help. So I'm here on Fort Despair, and I'm going ahead and rolling around to this corner, which anytime I have a tank with gun depression, this is where I like to be. And I go ahead and take a couple blind fire shots into those bushes because I see that they have tank destroyers. And anytime I see tank destroyers on the other team and nothing's spotted, I go ahead and fire a couple rounds in there unless I'm in a tank that's going to be struggling for ammo late in the game, because you never know when you're going to get that. And a lot of times when you fire, you'll get spotted and your light bulb will pop off. They won't have shots at you if you're being careful about it, so it just lets you know if something's over there so you don't go kind of screaming around the corner and get derped early in the game, because you certainly don't want that. So this is just a very opportunistic tank. I don't like to work it on the front lines at all because of the armor profile. Even though it's got gun depression, the armor on the turret isn't particularly fantastic. It does troll a little bit, so you'll get a few bounces as long as you're careful, but it's not something you can really depend on. Luckily, it's thick enough you're not really an HE magnet. You can get penned by HE with certain tanks at certain angles, but as long as you keep the front kind of forward, you can make use of it. So now that I can see a lot of their team has turned, you can see how I am just using this gun depression to make the tank as small as possible. The KV-13 is an obvious threat, but I also don't want to overextend myself and get shot by the tanks that are looking in, so that's why I'm being careful about it and hoping that SP can handle himself okay. ISU is something that would be really devastating to get shot by, so again, the gun depression is what really is kind of the telltale of this tank. You can keep your cross section a lot smaller. It's something I talk about quite a bit, but I'm just trying to kind of work my way through here and use the view range to hopefully get a few shots, because like I said, that ISU would absolutely wreck this tank if you let him, but instead I'm able to get rid of that dangerous tank, and even though we were down a little bit, we've worked our way back into it. The pen is fairly average on the T20, so I will shoot a decent amount of APCR, but not necessarily a huge amount. Just something you have to be aware of. And now I'm being careful. This SP is really kind of floating in the center, and we're up against two Tier 8 tanks, including a Borsig, which can really wreck us. So I have to be careful with it. When I see the 44 working this direction, I roll this way, and again using this hill, trying to get a couple free shots before he can do a lot of damage. And I'm also not really sure which direction that Borsig has turned. So again, you just have to be really careful with it. I don't want to take any extra shots, because if I take pretty much any damage at all, it'll make me a one-shot for the Borsig. So when I see him pop up behind, it lets me go ahead and push forward. It's bad that he killed my teammate, but it also lets me know that I have a little bit of leeway now to get away before he reloads. So it's something I just have to be kind of careful of. I know I have a bush between me and him at this point, so I want to be careful. And also, if I'm just showing my turret, I know I'm not going to be susceptible to a full HE pen, which is something to keep in mind. And since he is not in the bush, it's going to be fairly fair as far as view range goes. And there you can see exactly what happened. I did take a shot, but he's not going to get a really big roll. If he keeps shooting HE at me, it's going to be difficult for him. And there I go ahead. I know I have him on reload, so that's why I can get 2 shots in for his 1. And now I can go ahead and work back around. He fired there again, so now I'm again trying to poke back up. That's what I'm just waiting for, so I'm letting him take his shots. I don't get a good HE pen there. And it really didn't matter at that point as long as I hit him. It was going to be 2 AP shots anyway, and probably more than 1 HE, so it didn't really matter what shell I fired. But now, since it was kind of a weird roll, I'm trying to shoot HE just to guarantee the kill, and again, I'm able to do that. So like I said, this tank is a lot about kind kind of eliminating its weaknesses and working to its strengths. It unfortunately doesn't have as many strengths as a lot of tanks, but as long as you're careful with it, and it's a really good, I think, gun depression trainer. If you're not used to using a lot of ridgelines or some gentle slopes, it's a good tank that'll kind of get you there, because it has some forgiving attributes, and it's just a good way to kind of work on that. So we're going to switch right over to mines now, and I'm going to do the normal thing of rolling up to the hill. Because this tank isn't particularly speedy, you have to be a little careful on some of these maps when you're doing a rush for it. If I had seen much more than this Rudy, I don't know that I would have come up, because I don't want to get kind of cross-shot in there. So instead, since he doesn't have a lot of help, I'm going to go ahead and push him. But I can see how many TDs they have on their team, so I don't want to follow him across that edge, because it's a good way to get shot. It's one of those tanks I'm just going to have to deal with later. But the T20 is a tank that really profiles well to be on a ridgeline like this, because I do have good gun depression. It's just something, again, you don't want to overexpose, and since that SU was spotted, I have to be really careful about that. So I'm working on the KV-1 as much as I can, but being careful. I'm also mindful I can see on my mini-map that they have a light that's flanking us. But we have several tanks over there, so I wasn't really sure if I wanted to turn for him, but since I don't have obvious shots, it's okay. I can go ahead and do that. I don't want him to accidentally, I guess, kill a bunch of my team if they aren't smart enough to pay attention to him. So I can just roll over, make sure that tank gets killed, and kind of work way back and forth. The tank is just fast enough that you can get around and relocate a little bit. It's really just that power to weight isn't going to climb hills super fast, so you just have to, I guess, just be mindful of that when you're trying to move around. You can see me focusing on this SU quite a bit, because that's a really dangerous position for him to be in. If I'm not careful, and I'm spotted, he'll be able to turn and shoot me while I'm up here, so I'm just having to be a little bit more careful about poking out and making sure that I don't give him a big target. Luckily, the SU isn't particularly accurate. At 44 has the IS-6 gun, so the dispersion isn't particularly good, but the alpha is really, really good, so I just have to be really cautious about that. Now that I know I'm not spotted, I go ahead and roll out. Even though that KV-1S is able to spot as I roll across, I knew at that point the angle wasn't going to be right for him. And so again, just kind of working my way through here. I want to be in a position now that's advantageous, so if they keep pressing up the hill, that's fantastic. Not sure what the Cromwell is doing there, but I'm was pretty sure my team could go ahead and handle that. And now I have the extremely dangerous AT-15. I'm never going to be able to out-reload him. I'm going to have to be careful with the shots that I'm taking, because if he gets in front of me and climbs up this hill, it's going to be really hard to get him off of it. So I'm using just some pretty good accuracy and trying to whittle him down here a bit. I want to stay on the hill if at all possible, but if I can't, I'll just have to deal with it. But I've got a little cover now with this SP that's dead, so, and again, I can use this gun depression as I'm kind of rolling back. And at this point, I decide I really just have to push him. I'm down to not a lot of team left, and based on where everybody is, I'm not confident in him. So go ahead and take the track shot so I can get around and get that kill. No matter what, it's going to be a difficult situation now, but I actually am a little hopeful because I have all this cover. All these dead tanks are really great, and some players really struggle to get around around dead tanks to shoot you. So I'm just going to be careful and poke in and out. I have a pretty good idea of where that SU is. I tend to doubt he's moved. The SP's telling me no, but I know my camo's reset at this point. So as long as you're careful and just rolling out to spot and rolling back, it's totally a safe move. You just need to, kind of be aware and make sure you're rolling back fast enough to give yourself time for that light bulb to go off. Because if you stay out too long, then obviously they could sneak a shot in, and especially because one tank that's left is the Rudy, and that has that really fast reload and aim time, so it can snapshot pretty quickly. So here they come. They've decided to work their way up, so I'm instantly going for the track shots. I know with the cover between me and them, I always have the option to roll back off the hill, so I'm just trying to be cautious now and take the shots I can. I'm hoping I can get some shots under these tanks, but unfortunately I'm not really able to do that. The Rudy makes a really good move here and rolls to my left, which makes me know that I have to be careful as far as rolling back. And there's my spot of luck right there. If he hadn't caught fire, I was probably done. Good kind of turn there at the last second to go ahead and get the the shell into my tracks instead of shell to kill me, and so that was just really there was a little bit of luck with that fire, but otherwise that was handled pretty beautifully, and that's just kind of what you have to do in that situation. So basically what I'm doing at this point, I'm just resetting the map a little bit. That SU is going to kill me. He could actually HE me for a kill at this point, so I want to be careful. I really, at this point, I'm kind of hoping I can sneak up the backside of this, but I've never tried it in a T20 before this, so I'm not confident because that power to weight is so bad. But I figure it might as well be worth a shot, try and get up. It is actually closer than I thought. Heal the tracks. I should have healed it before I went up. That might have let me, but I don't know. That tank just isn't super quick, so it probably wasn't going to be up. But it was a good risk to take because if I'd gotten up there at that angle, it probably would have been an easy finish. So instead, I'm just going to be careful and roll around the side, and again, use that gun depression to not give him much of a target. Poor dispersion on the SU is going to have a hard time picking off the top of my turret as long as I kind of stay in motion, and I figured he was still up there, which he was. So now I'm just trying to kind of bait him into the position I want. With the APCR, now I can pen just kind of the top of that front plate, so that's what I'm trying to do there, just get that little corner. He goes ahead and rushes me when I miss, but the reload is quick enough on this that I can be careful and go ahead and take him as he's turning, since he's turretless TD. So nice little clutch there, and again showing how you can make this tank work. That the gun depression is one of the more powerful tools in Blitz, along with speed. So as long as you're kind of using those in the right ways, I think it can be certainly something that you can dominate with. Okay, so one last battle. Again, I just like to show versatility on these tanks when I can. Unfortunately, this tank isn't the most versatile, so I can't show it a ton of ways, but you can still kind of see it in a different way. The hull on this tank is fairly large, all considering, especially considering the size of the turret, so you want to try and keep that hidden. I show it a lot with gun depression, but you can also do it with these gentle hills. So here on Middleburg, I'm going to roll right up. This is one of my favorite spots. I don't have a lot of help behind me, but part of why I like this spot is that if I get into trouble, I can basically just pull forward and drive straight down the hill. I'll usually take a shot on the way down, but if I can hold some tanks up here, and this is a position, unless they're aggressive and push, you can hold fairly well, so it's just kind of something I'm keeping in mind with that. And really quickly here, I have enough help that we're able to knock this T-3485 down really quickly. He might not be dead, but he's rethinking life right now, and there my teammates able to go ahead and take him out. So now I have to switch and work on a Type 62. But clearly there's a lot of team up here, so I'm going to have to be very mindful of possibly needing to run away, because if they're smart, they would push us a little harder right now. Of course, they probably wouldn't be up on that little ridge. I don't recommend that spot because you're way too exposed. You can see here I'm just shooting drive wheels. That Tiger gets a nice little shot into me there, but and you can see where the T20 armor is fairly weak. But I'm still able to do some good work. So I'm just paying attention to my minimap, and that Type pushes really hard, which is a pretty good spot if you're careful with it, but it works better on a tank that has a stronger turret. So I'm kind of winning this exchange. There's nowhere for me to go. I don't want to back up, and I don't want to block this Hellcat, so I kind of have to just keep working this direction. But now they've pushed through and overran my team, so it's exactly what I was talking about. Now that position isn't a good spot to be anymore, so I'm going to push forward. I don't like to ram because I lose a lot of health, especially when this much is going on, but I can't let that Type get away or I'm going to be in trouble. And I'm just going to kind of use this maneuver to go ahead and propel me around the map a little bit. And luckily my team has finally done whatever they were doing in town, but we've held the top long enough to work into a good position, and now we've got lots of full health tanks that were sitting down in town to at least come and be meat shields. So that's why I'm rolling around the back, and now is when I can use that gun depression a little bit and come around to these edges. And I'm just going to watch turrets. I won't even risk necessarily taking a shot if they look at me, but if they are going to fire or look away, I can just kind of roll through and take it. So the Tiger 1 pushing, which isn't really a surprise, but when he comes up that hill, that's when I can roll out and take the shot, because I just know the Tiger doesn't have good gun depression. So as soon as the front of that tank goes up, you know you have time to pop out and take a shot, and that's something to keep in mind pretty much with any tank with poor gun depression, and that's where just knowledge comes into play. The more you just kind of pay attention and know the attributes of different tanks, it can make that give you some advantages in those little ways. So I hope this helped on the T20. Like I said, it's not one of my personal favorites. I don't hate it. I'm pretty neutral on it. It feels like vanilla to me, but it certainly can do well, and it doesn't have to be a difficult tank to run. As always, if you like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow on Twitch. Lots of good gameplay coming out, so I'll see you guys later. Thanks.